Prince Nesta, and you're listening to the sunny side of sports on the Voice of America. I spoke with Kenyan sports journalist Nation Owano about the organization of the AFCON tournament, standout performances, and some of the quarter-final matchups.
I'm personally impressed by the organization of the AFCON tournament. I mean, if you're looking at the duration when the AFCON tournament, it was being held at the backdrop of a lot of conversation. You remember the remarks by Jurgen Klopp just before the competition started, terming the competition as a little competition. So the organizers of the tournament did a good job in terms of ensuring that this tournament pulled through. One of the reasons why I also think that the organizers have done a good job is because if you look at the population of vaccinated people in Cameroon, it's about 2% of the population in Cameroon has been vaccinated. So just before the competition started, there was talks about the CAF president, that is Patrice Motsepe, being asked to postpone the tournament because we are at the height of the Omicron virus. But I think they've done a good job so far, apart from minor incidences here and there. Majorly during the Tunisia versus Mali game, when Giannis Ikweze blew the whistle 2 times, that is on the 85th minute and the 89th minute, ending the game prematurely, and the unfortunate incident a few days ago where there was a stampede at one of the stadiums where the Cameroon team was playing. So I think the organizers of this year's tournament have done an impeccable job amidst all the challenges that were presented to them.
There have been a couple of performances, some could be standout performances, some could be disappointing performances. What are some of those standout performances according to your opinion? And, you can also tie that into some of the disappointing performances.
I don't know whether this will be the first time that we'll be talking about outstanding performances from teams that are either making their debuts into the tournament or not. But I think the teams that have really stood out for me and have done an incredible job are Sierra Leone, Gambia, Comoros, and Malawi. Just a bit of history about those teams that I've mentioned. For example, Sierra Leone. The last time Sierra Leone was in the AFCON tournament was 25 years ago. And then them coming into the tournament this year and causing an upset, literally frustrating the Algerian team who are the defending champions of the AFCON competition. The other team that has stood out for me was Gambia, who are actually debutants in this year's tournament. If you look at their performances in the group stages, they drew 2 games and then they won 1, and they haven't lost a single game in the group stages of the tournament. Comoros, who are debutants in the tournament, have also done an incredible job. Here in Kenya, the conversation has been that Kenya should have been at the AFCON tournament, but they were not at the AFCON tournament this year at the expense of Comoros, because Comoros managed to beat the Harambee Stars, which is the national team over here. So I think the other team is Malawi. Malawi, the last time probably was at the AFCON tournament was in 1984. So for these teams to go all the way into the round of 16 and Gambia actually making it into the quarterfinals of the tournament, I think they've really done a good job. And I think tying that to some of the performances of some of the individual players, there are players who I think have stood out in this tournament. I mean, I'll start first of all with Chaka Al-Hadur, who's a left back for the Comoros national team. Remember, just before Comoros went to play their game against Cameroon, their camp was presented with a lot of challenges. Their goalkeeper was out because of an injury, and their reserve goalkeepers were out, tested positive for COVID-19. So Shaka was tasked with the responsibility of going to the goal line and being the goalkeeper. And he did an incredible job being an outfield player, saving two brilliant struck balls that probably could have costed the Comoros team. So I think that is one of the players that stood stood out for me. The other player that I think has stood out for me is Mohamed Kamara. Mohamed Kamara is the goalkeeper for the Sierra Leone national team. And I think the reason why I'm talking about him is how he was able to keep the Algerian national team at bay. Going into this tournament, not many people knew about Mohamed Kamara. But after that particular game against Algeria, everybody was now talking about him. The other three players who I think have stood out in this tournament are Vincent Abubakar from Cameroon, who is currently the top scorer in the AFCON tournament. The other one is Gabadinho Mhango, who plays for the Orlando Pirates, has scored 3 goals in this tournament. And the last one is Musa Barrow, who's from the Gambia team and plays for Bologna. So I think those are the players that have stood out for me in this particular AFCON tournament.
You've mentioned some of those players who stood out for you. What about the disappointing ones? And in this particular sense, you could also talk about some of the English Premier League players who actually you thought would perform well in this tournament, but so far they're just like other local African players, and even African local players are just playing better than them. Who are some of these players that, you could point out that they have been quite disappointing as far as their performances are concerned?
Thomas Partey, remember the Ghana national team, that is the Black Stars, where Thomas Partey plays, were knocked out of the group stages of the tournament. I think one of the biggest names that people are talking about in the AFCON tournament in terms of not standing out is Sadio Mane. I mean, he has scored goals in this tournament, but if you look at the goals that he scored, he's only scored 2 goals, and those 2 goals are courtesy of a penalty. So I think we expected much more from Sadio Mane, not only waiting for penalty kicks to get his goals in this tournament.
If you look at some of the matchups that are shaping up as far as the quarterfinals are concerned, what do you make of them?
Interesting. I'll probably start with the first leg of the quarterfinals, that is Gambia versus Cameroon. I think going into this particular game, Cameroon on paper are the favorites of this particular matchup. But I think they need to be wary of the Gambia national team. I mean, the team has shown us that they are able and they are willing to do anything to get into the finals of this tournament. So they are fighting with their own lives. So I think Cameroon are favorites in this game, but we can't underestimate the likes of Musa Barrow from the Gambia national team. They've started from the group stages. They've done a good job at the group stages, a round of 16, and now they are into the quarterfinals. So the Cameroon national team need to watch out against Gambia. The other game, Burkina Faso versus Tunisia. In terms of how I look at the performance of these two teams, for some reason, Tunisia is just one of those teams that people never give a lot of attention, but they always have their way of slithering their way into the later stages of the competition. So I think going into this game, Burkina Faso is a good team, but I think Tunisia have an upper hand in this particular game. The Egypt versus Morocco, which is a quite interesting fixture. This is not going to be the first time that they'll be playing against each other. They know each other, they understand each other. They play together a lot in North African football competition. So I think my stake will be in the Morocco squad going into this. The reason why I'm saying this is because I for some reason, I think Egypt is going into this particular game putting a lot of responsibility on Mohamed Salah. It is a good thing, but then it has its own downsides because it's a football match. It's 90 minutes at play with 120 minutes of extra time. So anything can happen in this particular game, even in the first minute. So I think Morocco look more composed. So going into this particular game, I think Morocco have an upper hand. The other game, Senegal versus Equatorial Guinea. For some reason, my bet has been for the Minions, as we call them, in the tournament. These are teams that nobody expected expected to get this far, but they are here. So I'll put my bet on Equatorial Guinea. I mean, Senegal have a good squad being led by a former player that is in Cisse, but I think they have a lot of work to do as they are going to face Equatorial Guinea.
That's Kenyan sports journalist Nation Owano, and he spoke with me from Nairobi, Kenya regarding the state of affairs in the African Cup of Nations tournament.